chocolate chip cookies.
You want some?
Well, it's Monday and day 2 for us here in Ottawa. The crowds have diminished a little bit, but as you can hear behind me, there's still lots of people here, lots of truckers. The ones I've spoken to today say they're not leaving anytime soon. It's been kind of exciting to be down here to hear from regular Canadians about their views on the vaccine mandates, on the federal government and provincial government's restrictions. One thing that really struck me, though, I was reflecting on another time when I was in the city. It was almost 26 years ago, and I was an intern for a news agency. This was back when I took broadcast journalism, a career that I didn't end up pursuing. But I remember being a young man and being surprised you'd be in a scrum with these politicians in Ottawa, and when you're there in person and you realize they just don't answer the questions that they're asked. And I remember sort of being surprised by that, and some of the more senior people sort of laughed at my naivete about that. Of course, they're not going to answer the question you ask them. They say what they want to say. And I think that's been the case for a long time, where we expect our politicians are going to put a slant or a spin or frame things in a certain way that makes them look better. What I found frustrating, though, was just coming back yesterday, having spoken to a number of people. If you saw my earlier video, you've seen that. And then to go back and read the news and hear our Prime Minister and our mainstream media talking about fringe extremists and violence and Confederate flags and swastikas, none of which I've seen. That's not to say absolutely that there's zero here, but if there are people like that here, I certainly haven't seen them. As you're hearing behind me, people are chanting freedom, peace, and love. The way I've described it is that if you've ever been to a church potluck or a Canada Day celebration, it's kind of like the cross between the two. We see people feeding one another. We see volunteers picking up trash off the street. We see people just thanking and blessing the police officers. People hugging, supporting one another, sharing stories. It seems odd to me that our Prime Minister preaches being inclusive and having a space for all Canadians. And what's ironic is what I've seen these last couple of days is what he says Canada's all about. And I think he's right about that. But what's surprising is these people that he's calling the fringe that are really modeling this love and inclusivity and tolerance toward one another. And that's been really encouraging. So while it's discouraging to see our politicians and our mainstream media frame it a certain way, it is so encouraging just to hear the stories on the street, people from across this country and beyond just coming together. I think there really is a change afoot, and I'm hoping that things do change for the better soon. Again, my continued prayer is that things remain peaceful. It seems that people here are generally very well behaved. We came out last night knowing that sometimes once night falls that things can get a little bit more rowdy, and certainly the energy was amped up a little bit. It got a little bit raucous, but still, from what I saw, very well behaved crowd. So that's my report here from Ottawa, and I'll keep you updated as we go.
I know you're wondering about what you saw in our capital city this weekend, but Nazi symbolism, racist imagery,
Peace and love.
desecration of war memorials are not. It is an insult. Hate can never be the answer. Over the past few days, Canadians were shocked and frankly disgusted by the behavior displayed by some people protesting in our nation's capital. I want to be very clear. We are not intimidated by those who hurl insults and abuse at small business workers and steal food from the homeless. We won't give in to those who fly racist flags.
All because they're Canadians just like we are, and they're standing up for our freedoms. And yeah, we want to support. We're Canadian. Remember that.
We won't cave to those who engage in vandalism or dishonor the memory of our veterans.
We're extremists for freedom and for truth. That's what we're extreme about. And we have nothing like that from our government.
There is no place in our country for threats, violence, or hatred. So to those responsible for this behavior, it needs to stop. To anyone who joined the convoy but is rightly uncomfortable with the symbols of hatred and division on display, join with your fellow Canadians. Be courageous and speak out. Do not stand for or with intolerance and hate. To the politicians exploiting people's fears, I ask you to think long and hard about the consequences of your actions. To the nearly 90% of truckers across the country who've gotten vaccinated, who continue working hard to keep us fed and keep our economy moving, thank you. Truckers have tough jobs. Long hours on the road, days away from their families. Real challenges, particularly over the past 2 years, as they've continued to step up to put food on our shelves and on our tables, to support us with life-saving medication and supplies. We have relied on you, and you can rely on us to continue to stand with you and allow you to do your jobs safely. Almost 90% of you are doing exactly that, right? Exactly that. And we thank you deeply for everything you've done. The behavior on display this weekend does not represent you. And to Canadians at home, watching in disgust and disbelief at this behavior, wondering how this could have happened in our nation's capital after everything we've been through together, this is not the story of our pandemic, of our country, of our people. Canadians are compassionate, kind, strong, and resilient. There is not a right to incite violence, to perform acts of violence, or to spew hatred.
Peace, brother.
And I think anyone who is part of this group who is disgusted by what the folks protesting alongside are doing needs to step up and take responsibility, condemn these actions, and look for other ways to express their displeasure. There is a right to protest. There is a right to make your voices heard loudly and clearly. There is not a right to shut down our democracy or our democratic processes. There is not a right to abuse, intimidate, and harass your fellow citizens.
Homemade chocolate chip cookies.
You want some?
Vaccines are safe and effective. The way we get through safe and effective. The way we get through this public health crisis, get back to the things we love, is by trusting science. Vaccines are safe and effective, and that they are the way to get through this pandemic.
So what would you say to your fellow Canadians about this cause that maybe they don't already know?
Don't give up. Don't give up.
Thanks for taking a few minutes to chat. I appreciate it, okay? Oh, one other question. How long are you planning on staying?
We're not sure yet. We got a full tank of fuel, so we're good for a few days.
Yeah, my guess is if you're running low, there's people here that'll
There are.
help you out with that. A lot of
There
helpful
are.
people around.
We have people that can look after us, and we are being looked after.
Okay. Stay strong. God bless. Thanks for
Thank you. You too.